Thank you for having me at this event at the Data Toboggan Cool Runnings about Azure Synapse. My name is Mikey Bronowski, and I will show you an overview of the Az.Synapse module, PowerShell module, what we can do, what we cannot do. The module has over 100 functions, commands, maybe 150 or something like that. So I won't be showing all of them, but just show you the taste of the PowerShell, what we can do. In the meantime, if you want to contact me or after the session, I'm on Twitter, so that's my handle, Mikey Bronowski. The same works for my Gmail email or LinkedIn profile. I also have a blog, so if you want to go there, I didn't write anything about Synapse yet, but it's pending. So my presentation is just demo. I don't have any slides. That's my only slide, and it is in PowerShell. So let's start the demo. Just let me see if my resource has been deleted. No, it's not. So I need to change the name of my resource, just so I don't have any problems. Excellent. So the first thing we need to start with is the connect-az account that will connect us to the Azure account, basically. Right now I'm connected, so I won't be running this, but it will prompt for user and password. So in this, when you're just beginning, you'll just need to run this to connect. That's the command from the Az accounts module, which has to be installed in order to Az.Synapse to work. So I have both modules installed. Currently, the Az.Synapse module is at version 0.12. I think it was released about 2-3 weeks ago, and it requires the latest version of Az accounts as well. So I'm going. Oh yeah, my resource is deleted now. Perfect. So I'm going to create the resource group first, as almost everything in Azure. So in order to do so, I'm going to use just the new Az resource group, which is not related to Synapse. It's just Azure in general. So I have some settings like name for my resource group and location, which is UK South, and it matches my location currently as I'm in Southampton. So I'm going to create the resource group. It takes just a few seconds, which is great, but other stuff in Synapse takes some time, so we will need to wait a while. Now I'm going to define my SQL user, SQL password, just the credentials. That's my password, so please don't remember that. And now we can switch to the Az.Synapse. So the first thing we need to create is the Synapse workspace. Microsoft has the quick start tutorial how to create that with PowerShell, and in other ways as well, using the portal. So what I'm going to do is define the parameters for my new workspace, which will be the name, the resource group I just created. See that I'm using the variable here. So when I created the resource group, I just saved it as an object, so I can refer to the name this way. So I don't have to put the name manually. It's very good for demos or when we change something. It always picks the name that was defined previously. Then we need to set up the default data lake storage account name, default data lake storage file system, and the SQL admin credentials. So that's related to the credentials here. And the location would be the location I'm using the location of my resource group. And to create the Azure Synapse workspace, I need to use the new Az.Synapse workspace command. So I'm going to run this, and we have 3 minutes now. Around, more or less. That's how long it gets to create the Azure Synapse workspace. That's my portal. So we can go to see my resource groups. That was empty because I deleted that resource group before the presentation. The data toboggan cool runnings resource group is there. And now my Azure Synapse workspace is being created. So it shows here, but when I click that, it says it's being provisioned. So we still have, we need to wait for this to be fully ripe. And yeah, it takes time. So I'm just going to give you some overview what we are going to do next. As you can see here, there is a workspace web URL that will open the Azure Synapse Studio. If I click it now, it also will throw a lot of errors, or it will be like spinning wheels because it's still being deployed. So I'm not going to do it now. That's when you are using the portal. In PowerShell, when we have the Azure workspace created, I can get the workspace details using a get Az.Synapse workspace command, providing the name of the workspace, the resource group name, and those would be the details of the whole workspace, Synapse workspace. But to get the URL for web and dev resources, I need to get to the properties. And as I remember correctly, on the documentation, on Microsoft documentation, there was the web and devs started with capital letter, and it didn't work. So it's case sensitive, and you have to use the lowercase in order to get the proper value. I think it's changed now. I've raised the PR for the documentation, which is cool, and everyone can improve the documentation, which is really great. So once the Synapse workspace will be created, we are going to add the firewall rules, so I can connect from my machine to the studio. And here I'm using the one of the websites that's listed on this link, and the one of the website that shows my IP address has this interface, API interface, so I can intercept my IP address with PowerShell and just add it to the definition of my firewall. And similar to other resources in Azure, Synapse also has its firewall rule command, which is Az.Synapse firewall rule. So I'm going to create the first rule, firewall rule, let me in, which is myself, my IP address, and the other rule would be allow all Windows Azure IPs, which is the required name for the Azure resources to be being able to talk to each other. It finished. My workspace is done. So let's see the portal now. I can refresh that, and well, nothing changed, but the prompt is gone here, so we are good to go. So now the firewall rules. Let's select all of this. It will take 30 seconds or 1 minute maybe. It's good. I remember when I was preparing some other presentation in Azure, the day before, the evening before, everything was taking twice as long. So I was a little bit worried before my presentation, but on the day, it was actually half of the time, which saved me stress. So it was good. So now once we set the firewall rules, I'm going to open the workspace web using Microsoft Edge. So if I use just start process without providing the name of the application, it will open in my default web browser, which is Opera. But I want to open that in Edge because I'm using that as I'm connecting to the portal with that browser. Otherwise, I would have to authenticate myself again. So let's wait a couple more seconds. The rules are added. So now I'm going to open the studio, and that will open the Azure Synapse Studio, which will exactly the same thing if we click here, but we are doing this from PowerShell. So we have the studio, and it's all created with PowerShell so far. Now in the studio, we can create the notebooks. So let's say we have the notebook here. And to be able to use that, we need to attach it to Apache Spark Pool, but we don't have one. From the portal, from the studio, we can create the pool here, but in PowerShell, we are lucky because we have a command, new Azure Synapse Spark Pool. So I'm going to define the parameters for that and create this Apache Spark Pool with PowerShell. So I need the name, I need the workspace name, the one I just created, node count, node size. I'm using the smallest value possible just to save some money, resource group name, and some other parameters just to show you that what's there. So when I run this, it will create the new Azure Spark Pool. And when I go here, you can see it shows here, but it's not ready yet. So we need to wait around about a minute. And in the next step, we can see that we can also, in most of the resources or objects, we can use the update command for the Azure Synapse Spark Pool or SQL Pool or any other object to change the parameters. So in this case, I can, if I forget to add the tags, let's say you want to add the tags, but you forgot to add the tags, you can always add them with the update command. And this is just an example that we can do it after this Apache Spark Pool has been created. For the notebooks, it's a bit tricky at the moment, so I'm going to show you the Apache Spark Pool has been created. I don't have any tags here. It's empty. So when I run the update now, update command, it will add the tags to my Apache Spark Pool, but it will take some time to create that. So Apache Spark Pool creation took about 1 minute. The notebooks are a bit tricky. There is no like create notebooks and provide all these parameters. You can set the notebook and provide the definition file, which is helpful. So when you have the notebook already, you can import. It's basically import. You can import that to your studio, and in order to do it in, well, that's what you have to do. So when you're doing this for the first time and you don't have the notebook, you would need to create the notebook in this section. So I'm going to attach my Apache Spark Pool, just create some notebook, simple notebook. I need to publish that. It will be notebook 1 or whatever. We can change it to, let's see, this name, and hit publish. Publish is basically a save, and it will take a few seconds, and it's done here. So now from the PowerShell, we can get the notebook using get Az.Synapse notebook command, and that's how it looks like in PowerShell. And with PowerShell, we can also export that notebook. but I'm not sure if that's a bug or some limitation of my subscription. When I do the export to the file, one more. When I do the export to the file, it just exported here, and I want to import that file back to the Synapse. I'm getting an error. The object reference not set to an instance of an object. And I thought at first that that is an issue with the set command, but it seems like the issue is with the export command, because at the same time, when I exported the file and I want to, so let's say export this file just to my local download file, and now I'm going to delete that and import from my, that's the location. I'm getting this error message. So that file was exported with the PowerShell command. So I'm not sure if that's something I'm missing in my command or some other limitations, but export command doesn't really work, doesn't allow you to create a valid file. And I compared the files, and they have some differences, even like this cell type and cell underscore type. I don't know if that's the case. I've raised the issue on the GitHub for that command, so I will be tracking that down just to make sure we can use that command because it is very useful. But we can also, once I exported the command from the portal, which is here, going to copy that over to my backup file. Okay, so that would be valid file. Just exported it from the studio manually, and now I can use that file. So I don't have any notebooks at the moment. Well, I have, well, but publish, of course. Whenever you do changes in Studio, you need to publish to save the changes. With the PowerShell, it's not the case. And I want to set the file. Oh, okay, that's weird. So I might have just wrong file. Let's see the other one, just exported before. That's unfortunate. So you have to believe me. When it's exported from the portal and imported with the set command, it works. Well, we can try again. Just publish, and be, let's add one more because I like zeros. Publish, and now export. Export will open, it will download it to my download file, download folder. And I'm going to copy that to my backup. Oh, I used the wrong, I know what happened. I used the wrong folder. So now I can use the set command. And it works now. So exporting the notebook from the studio works. Exporting with PowerShell doesn't really work. The other thing we can create in Azure Synapse is SQL Pools. And also we have a command for the SQL Pool. So I'm going to define the name, the workspace again, the performance level. Again, I'm cheap, so the cheapest possible, and resource-driven collation. And it will take, again, a couple of minutes to create the SQL Pool. And after we we do this, we can manipulate the pool with different commands. I'm not sure if I'm going to run all of them because they can run up to 3 minutes just to suspend and resume. So you know it's possible, but we don't have to watch it actually. But it works. It just takes some time, and it's difficult to prepare for that. So it just takes some time for the operations. But the other useful thing is to restore the Azure Synapse SQL Pool when we create the new restore point for the SQL Pool, and then we can restore that SQL Pool as different SQL Pool. I'm just providing the prefix here, and that will also take some time, but it's a useful thing if we want to duplicate the SQL pools or just restore it from the backup, basically. And it's still getting created. We can go to the studio and see the pool. No, it's still being created. So in my notes it says around 2.5 minutes, and so we just have to wait at this point. For other stuff, like for other objects, we can also update the SQL Synapse SQL Pool, like adding the tag, or even change the. If we will win lottery, we can change the performance level to something bigger. But yeah, it's possible after the SQL Pool is created, and also we can remove the pool. So I think I might skip this at this point, or maybe it will run in the background, because just creating the restore point and restoring the SQL Pool and then removing it will take about 5 minutes, and it's just waiting. It's nothing exciting here. So once the SQL Pool is created, so I can kick off some other things, but we can go to the triggers and pipelines in the meanwhile. So where's the restore point here? It was 30 seconds. It will block my PowerShell session, so I don't want to do that. Let's go to the triggers. So we similar to notebooks, we can have triggers. Get the trigger. Right now I don't have any, and if we want to create a new one, we need to provide the definition. I have the definition of the trigger here, which is basically a JSON file saying stuff. There is no export command for that, so if I want to export the trigger, I would need to do it manually at the moment. So I'm going to create trigger. I'm going to create trigger like this. It will take, again, some time. It's from my experience, it's a lot of waiting with working with the Synapse and PowerShell. Maybe it's more visible because with PowerShell you just click one command and you think it should be done, but yeah, it just needs some time. Once we okay, I know what I did here. So I'm just going. Oh, the trigger is finished. I didn't notice. So we have a trigger now. No, we don't. What happened? I'm running the command now, and it will create the trigger from the definition file, which is there in my folder. Yes. And once that's done, we can see what's the subscription status for that trigger. So let's see if the trigger has been created now. No. Whoa, that's something weird happening here. Triggers. Let's see. Refresh. Perfect. It's not here. So I'm going to create the trigger manually. And it will be executing every minute, and it will be activated. So, and it's done. Now I need to publish. Oh, I need the that's the problem. So I need the pipeline in order to create the trigger. Close. So yeah. So my mistake. To create the pipeline, it's the same pattern. We need to create the pipeline first from the definition file, and I have the that's going to be. We're changing this as that was created in the studio first. Never mind. And that will create the pipeline here. Again, some waiting for the pipeline. Yeah, it's done now. Oh. Come on.
It always feels slower when you're presenting. Don't worry about it.
It is here, so it was created. Just don't see it in the portal. Okay, I think another thing I forgot to do. Yes. Oh my gosh, I have this all on in reverse. So to create a pipeline, you need the, well, I'll show you. Yeah, to create the pipeline, you need the, I wanted to create the basic pipeline. So you need the data source, and I'm using the just basic thing in Synapse. Continue. And I need to create, this is the default SQL Server, and I needed the SQL Pool, which should be here. It's been created. Yes. So I need to create a table. That's the SQL Pool. Now I need to create some tables, and to do so, I'm going to use the SQL file here to develop, import. You cannot, I didn't find a way to do it with PowerShell, so I'm going to import the SQL script, run. It created the table in my SQL Pool. Refresh. Publish, always publish. Pipeline, no, don't want pipeline. That's why it's good to do it in PowerShell. If you have actions in order, you don't forget about the publish button. And now I can go back to the linked service. I think that I can create it. So right now I have the default linked services, the default SQL Server, default storage. And when I do this, I've created the linked service 01, and that is linked. Come on. Now when I create the pipeline, I can create a pipeline now. It should work. It's being created, I think. And what I wanted to show in this part is just to like we can create the triggers and pipelines from the definition files, and then we can control the runs, the executions. I think it failed. So I mixed something with this thing. So let me create the pipeline manually just to see if I'm missing anything else. So I'm going to select the new service, linked service table. What is linked service data topogram? Linked service. No. Once again, refresh. Do we have the table now? Oh, the table is not here. Why? New script, new table. Yes. Publish. Publish. And now pipeline, copy data, source, new, signups. New, I'm just going to create new. And this server, database name, authentication type, and that's SQL authentication. And my username is DT, and my password is the long one here. So something didn't work with my JSON definition file. So I'm just going to create, and it's done. Okay. Okay. And in sync transformation, I'm just going to use the bulk insert and validate. Works fine, and publish. And I told you that there is no export option at the moment, but you can see the definition of the pipeline here in the studio. So the code is basically here. That's the pipeline definition. So if I change it here, I could create the pipeline with this file, new pipeline, let's say 2.
If you connect up your, instead of using live mode, if you push to a Git repo, you can then see the actual files. That's another way of doing it.
Oh, okay, didn't know that. Nice. Ah, good. But yeah, this time it worked. So I had probably some issues with creating the table before. That's why the pipeline wasn't created. So it didn't really shout. Well, it shouted in the error messages. It said status failed. But now it worked. Let's see if we can create a trigger now. The pipeline is, unless it doesn't work. And as my original pipeline was 0, we can see if that works as well. So then I can create my original trigger. And it should work this time. Let's see. So now we can see the triggers. Yay! Whew. Phew. It works. So once we have the trigger, we can. I didn't plan to demo that, but we can start the trigger. So we can use start Azure Synapse trigger, and that would be Workspace. And that's too much, and that would be the name. And that should change the status here. Yes, it started now. And to get the runs, we can also start the trigger. So I have one trigger here. It's the trigger. And we can see that it didn't run. We can see if it's running. Trigger runs. Oh, it ran one time, and we can see that the pipeline ran one time as well. Using the get Az.Synapse pipeline run, we can see the pipeline runs, which is good to see. It succeeded, and the same should work for the trigger if we have the proper name. Yeah, it works this way as well. And we can also stop the pipeline, but we cannot. So let's say I have the pipeline ID, run ID. Actually, it's not a pipeline ID. And I want to stop it. I will get an error that will say pipeline has run already completed. So I can only stop the pipelines that are in progress or queued. So you probably you should be able to get this programmatically to get the run ID in order to stop that. Otherwise, just to list all the runs. And we can also see that if there are any other settings for the SQL Pool and the linked services as I created one. So that was the default. Oh, sorry. That is the default storage, that is the default SQL Server, and those are two created by myself with the command get Azure Synapse linked services. And again, we can set up the linked services with the JSON file, which in my case didn't really work because I think I missed the table as my first step. And at the last part, just shortly, there are 3 commands, the test commands. There are 4 commands, but in my demo, I'm using the 3 commands. Test Azure Synapse Workspace, test Azure Synapse SQL Pool, and Spark Pool. They basically test if the resource exists. So if I run this, it will say, yep, that resource, which is Azure Workspace data topologan dash ASW exists, and same for SQL Pool and Spark Pool. And that's it. We have more commands in the in the module. Command Azure Synapse. Maybe this way. Of course, it's not possible to do them in one demo, but I encourage you to have a look and see what you can do. I didn't show the restore one, but it basically because it would run 5 minutes just to do the thing. So have a look at the PowerShell module. It may need some other work to do in Studio as well, but it's very helpful when you have your processes or actions and you have to repeat them. And as in other modules, when I also presented the session about different Azure resource, which is the Elastic Jobs, and it was fully done in PowerShell. So I didn't have to go to the portal at all. So it is really good to have the flexibility of PowerShell to manage the Azure resources. And my timer is done. And with that said, I wanted to thank you again for having me. Sorry for the a bit of delay and problems with the demo. And that's it. If you want to contact me, like I said before, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Gmail, and you can get reach. So if there are